In the heart of Rome, where marble villas gleamed beneath the moon, the true nature of the elite emerged after dark. Behind closed doors, senators and noblewomen shed their togas and morals alike. Lavish banquets turned into decadent celebrations of lust, and whispers of passion echoed louder than the clinking of golden goblets. Lady Auderia, wife of a powerful senator, was the crown jewel of these gatherings. By day, she was graceful and pious. By night, she was a goddess of desire. Her villa on the Palatine Hill became infamous for its hidden rooms, scented with exotic oils and perfumed smoke. Slaves played music, as veiled guests indulged in every forbidden fantasy imaginable.
But Aurelia's downfall came with love, not lust.
She fell for a young Greek slave named Dorian, whose beauty defied all sense. When her husband discovered them together, he tried to hush the scandal. Yet, word spread to the emperor's court.
Overnight, Aurelia vanished from Rome. Some said she was exiled to Sicily.
Others whispered she joined a secret cult of Venus, worshipping desire in the shadows. Her villa was sealed forever. But at night,
servants swore they could still hear faint laughter and the soft notes of her flute drifting through the dark.
When the sun set behind the 7 hills of Rome, the empire's real games began. Deep within the city, hidden under grand villas, were chambers lit by torches and perfumed with myrrh. Here, senators, generals, and noblewomen gathered not for politics but for pleasure. Nights where wine drowned, guilt and masks hid shame.
Lucius Varro, a young senator known for his charm and cunning, sought more than power.
He craved the forbidden, and no one was more forbidden than Domitia, the emperor's mistress. She was temptation incarnate, draped in silk, her smile both blessing and curse. Their affair began in secrecy, with letters hidden beneath marble statues and rendezvous in the emperor's garden. But Rome had no secrets for long.
A jealous rival exposed them, and Lucius was accused of treason.
At dawn, he was dragged to the Colosseum, forced to face lions before thousands. From her seat beside the emperor, Domitia watched, her expression unreadable. When the beast struck, she smiled faintly, not from cruelty, but survival. That night, the torches in the secret chambers still burned, and the feasts continued. In Rome, lust was never punished, only discovered. Rome's marble temple stood tall, but its heart pulsed with desire and deceit. Gossip was the empire's favorite game, and no story thrilled the people more than the scandal of Julia, daughter of Emperor Augustus. Born into power, Julia was expected to embody virtue, but she became the empire's most infamous lover. She held secret parties in the forum's shadow, where poets, generals, and noblemen gathered under the guise of philosophy. Behind silk curtains, verses of love turned into confessions of passion. Her lovers ranged from senators to slaves, and her laughter echoed through the imperial gardens long after midnight. When Augustus learned of her secret life, his fury shook Rome. He ordered every man involved executed and sent Julia into exile on a desolate island, where she lived surrounded by nothing but the sea and her memories. Years later, a traveler claimed to have seen her on the shore, gazing toward the lights of Rome, whispering poetry to the waves. Her body died in isolation, but her spirit became legend. Rome called her sinful, but Tom remembered her as something else, a woman who dared to love beyond law. In a world ruled by men and hypocrisy, beneath the bustling markets and temples of ancient Rome lay a hidden world, a labyrinth of secret chambers where the city's most powerful came to indulge their darkest desires. These rooms were decorated with golden lamps and frescoes of the gods, each corner echoing with whispers of pleasure. Cassia, a young widow from a noble family, discovered this world after her husband's death. Lost between grief and longing, she found solace in the arms of Titus, a gladiator whose eyes spoke of freedom and fire. Their love was pure, but in Rome, purity was never safe. They met beneath the Temple of Venus, in a chamber perfumed with incense and secrecy. But one night, betrayal struck. A jealous noble exposed them to the Senate. Titus was condemned to die in the arena, his final battle watched by thousands, including Casa veiled and trembling when the sword struck. She screamed once, then disappeared. Her villa was found abandoned, the walls painted with verses of love and loss. Some claimed she drowned herself in the Tiber.
Others believed she joined the cult of Venus, seeking her lover beyond mortal reach.
Even today, the ruins of Rome whisper her name. Cassia, the woman who loved a slave more than her own life. In the golden age of Rome, power was worshipped, but desire ruled the night. Beneath the Senate's marble floors, far from the city's pious eyes, a secret order thrived. They called themselves the Disciples of Venus, a brotherhood of senators, priests, and courtesans who believed pleasure was divine. Their gatherings took place in candlelit temples hidden under the baths. Wine poured like blood, music echoed through the halls, and masked figures performed sacred rituals of ecstasy and surrender. Among them was Senator Drusus, a man of intellect and restraint, until he witnessed the ritual for the first time. The scent of incense mixed with sighs of devotion, and he felt himself drawn into the forbidden. But when he learned the cult used political blackmail and dark sacrifices to protect its members, he tried to expose them. 3 nights later, his villa caught fire. His servants were found dead, and Drusus vanished without a trace. The cult survived, its members untouched. Rome continued its rituals of power and lust beneath a veil of respectability. Centuries later, archaeologists unearthed strange carvings under the ruined scenes of masked figures praising Venus.
The hidden world of Roman desire was real, and Rome had buried it well.
Power and lust were the twin pillars of Rome. Every alliance, every betrayal, began not in the Senate, but in the bedchamber. None understood this better than Emperor Caligula and his cousin, Livia Drusilla, a woman whose beauty could silence a crowd. Their relationship began as whispers in marble halls and ended as a storm of blood and jealousy.
Livia was married to a respected general, but Caligula desired her with the obsession of a god.
He offered her power beyond imagination, and she accepted, unaware that loving an emperor was like kissing fire. Their nights were filled with passion and danger, golden wine, dancing slaves, and vows spoken over forbidden fruit. But when Livia tried to influence Caligula's council decisions, she became a threat. Rome's elite demanded her silence. One night, during a lavish feast, her goblet was filled with poisoned wine. She died mid-laugh, her crimson lips curving into a final smirk. Caligula's rage was legendary. He built her a marble shrine and declared her a goddess of desire. Yet her death marked his descent into madness. In Rome, power was the greatest aphrodisiac and the deadliest curse. Beyond the Colosseum's roar and the Senate's speeches stood Rome's greatest secret, the pleasure palaces, hidden among the countryside villas of the elite. These estates were temples to lust, where emperors and aristocrats came to indulge in what the world forbade. The most infamous of them belonged to Emperor Nero. His golden house, the Domus Aurea, glittered with gold-leafed ceilings, and marble pools filled not with water, but with perfumed oils. Noble women arrived in masks, musicians played foreign melodies, and dancers performed under painted skies of divine pleasure. Among Nero's favorites was Sabina, a poetess whose verses could ignite the coldest heart. She sang of love as rebellion, and that was her downfall. When she mocked the emperor's cruelty in her poems, he invited her to his final feast. The night was dazzling. Torches, roses, endless wine, until dawn revealed her lifeless body floating in a silver fountain. They said Nero wept, but only for her song. Rome continued to dance, and the pleasure palaces thrived, monuments, not to beauty, but to mankind's hunger for ecstasy, control, and ruin. In an empire where passion and power walked hand in hand, love could kill faster than any sword. Flavia, the wife of a high-ranking general, was adored for her virtue. But behind her gentle eyes burned a desire no law could tame. She fell for a gladiator, Marcus, a man born to die for others' entertainment. Their affair began in secret, with messages carved beneath amphitheater benches and stolen glances before the games. When her husband discovered the truth, his fury became legend. To humiliate them both, he arranged a private spectacle. Marcus would fight for his life before her eyes.
The crowd roared as he struck down his foes, each blow fueled by love and defiance.
But at the end, when victory seemed near, a hidden archer struck him through the heart.
Flavia screamed his name, collapsing beside his body.
By dawn, she was gone. Some say she poisoned herself. Others claim she vanished into the catacombs, never to be seen again. Rome whispered their names for years. The noblewoman and her gladiator.
Bound by love stronger than
Fear, destroyed by the empire they defied.
Behind the white columns and frescoed halls of Rome, elite villas hid stories that never reached the scrolls of history. There, behind silk curtains, lust ruled like an emperor. Cornelia Rufina was one of Rome's most desired courtesans, a woman of wit, beauty, and mystery. Her lovers included senators, poets, and generals, each believing they possessed her heart. But Cornelia served only herself. Through whispered secrets and stolen letters, she controlled the most powerful men in Rome without ever lifting a sword. One night, during a grand feast, two of her lovers discovered her betrayal. Their argument erupted into violence, shattering the illusion of civility. By morning, both were dead, and Cornelia vanished with a chest of gold and sealed documents that could ruin half of Rome's Senate.
years later.
A villa was found near Pompeii's ruins, its walls painted with the image of a woman draped in red silk, holding two snakes. Locals believed it was Cornelia, immortalized by a secret admirer. She had become legend, the courtesan who conquered Rome not with armies, but with desire. Emperor Tiberius was known to the world as a ruler of discipline, intellect, and power. But behind the walls of his palace on Capri lay another truth. One Rome dared not speak. Each night, the emperor's private island transformed into a world of unrestrained indulgence. Slaves, musicians, and nobles alike gathered under the moon to serve his hidden cravings. The scent of jasmine filled the air as masked dancers performed rituals that blurred the line between devotion and sin. Among the many who entered his world was Leontia, a young priestess chosen for her purity. Tiberius saw in her both beauty and innocence, qualities he longed to possess. Yet Leontia's soul burned brighter than his darkness. She resisted him, praying to Venus for deliverance. Days later, she was found dead beneath the cliffs of Capri. Some said she jumped.
Others whispered she was silenced.
Tiberius ordered her name erased from the temple records, but even he could not escape guilt. His nights grew restless, haunted by visions of her face in the moonlight. Power had given him everything except peace.
Rome remembered him not for his conquests, but for the horrors that unfolded when the emperor's desire turned to madness.
In the age of emperors and conquest, no betrayal cut deeper than love that defied rank. Valeria, daughter of a wealthy senator, was promised to a man twice her age, a political marriage meant to strengthen alliances. But her heart belonged to another Octavian, a young artist who painted the gods on palace walls. Their meetings were held in secret, in candlelit chambers filled with the scent of rose oil and wet marble. He painted her as Venus, goddess of love, his brush trembling with devotion. But passion has no place in politics. When her father discovered their affair, Octavian was condemned to death, not by sword, but by silence. His tongue was cut, his paintings destroyed. Valeria was forced into marriage, her spirit broken. Yet every night, she returned to the ruins of his studio, tracing his name in the dust. Years later, her husband found a hidden painting, a portrait of her younger self, weeping under the gaze of Venus. The scandal was buried, but the painting survived. Historians still whisper it was Valeria herself who finished it with tears instead of paint. Beneath the streets of the Eternal City ran tunnels older than the empire itself, secret halls that once echoed with chants, laughter, and forbidden pleasure. These were Rome scriptebo raptatis, the caverns of desire. Here, under flickering torchlight, the city's elite shed their titles and masks alike.
Senators mingled with slaves.
Noble women danced beside gladiators. The air was thick with wine and perfume, bodies glistening in the shadows as the boundaries of decency dissolved.
In the heart of these feasts stood Lady Calpurnia,
A widow with a reputation for virtue, until she became the queen of these underground gatherings. Her villa cellar led directly to the hidden tunnels, where she presided over rituals to Venus, claiming that pleasure was the truest form of worship. But power breeds enemies. One night, the emperor's spies raided the chamber. Calpurnia was never seen again, and the tunnels were sealed. Centuries later, archaeologists discovered mosaics of masked figures embracing under golden stars, proof that the stories were real.
Rome tried to erase its sins, but the walls still remembered.
In the empire's twilight years, Rome was a city of indulgence, where love often began as beauty and ended in blood. Senator Decimus was known for his intelligence and temper, but when he met the dancer Lyria, reason abandoned him. Her performances at the theater of Pompey drew crowds, yet she danced only for him. He showered her with gold, gifts, and promises of freedom. But when she refused to become his mistress, his desire twisted into madness. He bribed her troops master to keep her locked away, forcing her to perform for him alone in a secret villa outside the city. Days turned to weeks, and Lyria's graceful movements became slower, her spirit fading. When Decimus finally realized he had destroyed what he loved, it was too late. She took her life in silence. Consumed by guilt, Decimus vanished from the Senate and retreated to the countryside. Rumor claimed he built a shrine to her, with marble statues of dancers forever frozen midst. Rome whispered his story for generations, a reminder that in the empire of desire, love could consume the soul faster than any flame. Every empire thrives on rumor, and Rome's gossip was more potent than war. The city's elite turned love into a dangerous sport where seduction could crown or destroy. Among the greatest scandals was that of General Marcellus and Queen Drusilla of Numidia. A foreign ruler kept as a guest in Rome. Their affair began in diplomacy, but soon turned to passion. They met under moonlight in her gilded chambers, speaking in whispers of freedom and rebellion. When news of their love reached the emperor, it was declared treason. Marcellus was executed at dawn, his name erased from the records. Drusilla was forced to return to her kingdom in chains. But before leaving Rome, she sent a final letter written in her own blood, vowing that Rome would one day pay for their love. Years later, a rebellion erupted in North Africa, led by warriors bearing her sigil. History calls it coincidence.
Rome knew better.
Love had started the firepower, and Rome was built not only on conquest, but on temptation. Many dynasties fell, not by sword, but by seduction. The Julio-Claudian line, mighty and divine, met its ruin through one woman, Agrippina the Younger. Brilliant, ruthless, and beautiful, she knew that desire was a weapon sharper than any blade. She seduced her way to power, marrying her uncle, Emperor Claudius, and later placing her own son, Nero, on the throne. At first, the empire adored her, the mother of Rome's new golden age. But whispers soon grew dark. They said she and Nero shared a bond too intimate for mother and son. When she tried to control him, Nero struck first. He invited her to a feast by the sea, pretending reconciliation.
As her ship sailed home, it split apart, collapsing by design.
Agrippina swam to shore, drenched, but alive until Nero's guards arrived to finish what he had started. Her final words echoed through history. Strike the womb that bore such a monster. With her death, Rome's last line of noble blood turned to madness. Lust had consumed its own creation. Beyond the marble gates of Rome's elite estates, a different kind of feast awaited. Not one of food or music, but of flesh, power, and temptation. These were known as the banquets of Bacchus, where wine flowed like rivers, and every moral boundary dissolved under the god's laughter. One of the most infamous hosts was Gaius Severus, a noble known for his charm and cruelty. His villa, hidden near the Tiber, came alive at midnight with dancers, perfumes, and laughter that echoed through the hills. Guests wore golden masks to hide their sins, indulging in excesses, too scandalous to speak aloud. But one night, Gaius invited a Vestal virgin Livia, sworn to chastity, to his feast. Drunk with curiosity and fear, she entered the hall of forbidden pleasure. Before dawn, she vanished. Some claimed she fled in shame. Others said she became the latest victim of Gaius's obsession. Days later, his villa burned to the ground, and his body was never found. The Senate declared it divine punishment. But Rome whispered another truth, that the gods themselves had come to collect their price for his desecration. Even centuries later, peasants avoided the ruins, fearing they'd hear the faint echo of laughter from a feast that never truly ended.
For emperors, love was never simple. It was strategy.
Every kiss carried the weight of politics. Every affair could change the course of an empire. None understood this better than Emperor Hadrian, whose passion for the young Greek Antinous became one of history's most haunting love stories. Antinous was beauty incarnate. Quiet, thoughtful, devoted. Together, they traveled across the empire, their closeness shocking the Roman elite.
Hadrian ignored the whispers, proclaiming Antinous his divine muse.
But love was not kind to emperors. During a voyage along the Nile, tragedy struck. Antinous drowned mysteriously in the river. Some said it was accident. Others whispered he was sacrificed to secure Hadrian's immortality. The emperor's grief was unimaginable. He wept before the gods, built statues in Antinous's image across every city, and even founded a new cult in his name. Rome was horrified, yet captivated. Never before had a man been deified, not for conquest, but for love. Hadrian ruled 4 years afterward, but he never smiled again. His empire endured, but his heart was buried with Antinous somewhere beneath the sands of Egypt, where the Nile still whispers their secret. The grandeur of Rome sparkled under the sun, but its truest face appeared after dark. When the temples closed and the markets slept, the city turned into a playground for forbidden pleasure. In the shadow of the Palatine Hill, Senator Lepidus hosted what became known as the Nights of the Red Moon. Once a month, nobles and courtesans gathered in his garden, bathed in crimson torchlight. They wore masks carved from ivory and gold, shedding all identity as they gave in to their most secret desires. But one night, the emperor's spies infiltrated the feast, exposing powerful men and women in acts too scandalous for words. Lepidus was arrested, but instead of begging for mercy, he laughed in the emperor's face. "You can cage me," he said, "but you cannot kill Rome's hunger." He was executed the next morning. Yet within weeks, new feasts began across the city, more secretive than ever. Rome thrived on sin, and for every scandal silenced, 2 more rose. The empire's walls gleamed white, but its heart pulsed with crimson, the color of desire that no law could erase. In the marble corridors of power, betrayal came in goblets of gold. Poison was the language of Rome's lovers, silent, swift, and final. Aurelius, a general returning, victorious from war, brought home not just spoils, but a foreign queen, Selene of Carthage. Her beauty was unmatched, her charm irresistible. Rome adored her, but the Empress Faustina burned with jealousy. At a banquet held in Selene's honor, golden cups overflowed with spiced wine. The air shimmered with tension. Faustina smiled as she handed Selene a drink. A silent declaration of war. Moments later, Selene collapsed, her lips turning violet. The hall froze.
Aurelius screamed her name, but the empress merely watched, calm and triumphant. Days later, the general's villa erupted in flames.
His body was never recovered. Some said he poisoned himself beside her tomb. Others claimed he fled to Africa, haunted by the ghost of the woman Rome had murdered. The empire continued its feasts and battles, never learning that the deadliest wars were fought in silence between love and power, lips and lies. The throne of Rome was surrounded by beauty and danger. Many emperors ruled the world, but none ruled their hearts.
Emperor Commodus, son of Marcus Aurelius, was feared for his cruelty and worship of excess.
But even he bowed before one Marcia, a slave girl whose intelligence matched her allure. She softened his temper, whispered advice into his ear. and slowly became the most powerful woman in Rome. Yet Marcia's loyalty belonged to Rome, not the man. When she discovered Commodus's plan to slaughter the Senate, she risked her life to stop him. She slipped poison into his wine, the same chalice he had once given her as a token of love. That night, the emperor died in his bath, never realizing his lover's final kiss was betrayal. Marcia vanished into legend, spared by the new rulers who saw her as both hero and traitor. Her story lived on as a warning. Even emperors could fall not to swords or conspiracies, but to the soft touch of the woman they thought they owned. When night fell upon the eternal city, torches burned brighter than the stars. The noble estates of Rome became theaters of temptation where music, masks, and whispers ruled. The most secretive of these gatherings was hosted by Lady Drusilla, a widow rumored to possess the beauty of Venus and the mind of a serpent. Her gatherings were invitation only, attended by Rome's most powerful senators, poets, and courtesans. They took place in her marble atrium lit by 1,000 candles, where wine flowed endlessly and veils fell one by one. But these were not simple feasts. Drusilla's servants were trained in seduction. Her musicians played foreign rhythms said to drive men mad. It was whispered that she mixed herbs into the wine potions that awakened hidden desires. When a senator confessed under the influence to plotting against the emperor, Drusilla's secret empire crumbled. She was accused of witchcraft and treason. On the night of her arrest, her villa stood empty, every candle still burning, every goblet full. Drusilla was never found. Some said she fled east to start anew. Others claimed she ascended, becoming the goddess her lovers once believed she was. Rome never held another feast like hers again.
Deep in the heart of the empire stood Rome's most extravagant secret, the Domus Veneris.
Or House of Venus. Outwardly, it appeared to be a palace of art and music, but behind silk curtains lay a kingdom of indulgence. The house was run by Marcellina, once a slave, now a queen of pleasure. Her beauty was rivaled only by her intelligence. She trained noblewomen and gladiators alike in the art of seduction, teaching them to control men more powerful than armies. Every night, senators disguised in plain robes entered through hidden corridors, shedding their public virtues at the door. What began as a sanctuary of pleasure became a center of influence. Secrets were traded like kissos. Policies decided between silk sheets. But power is poison. One night, a jealous consul exposed the house, claiming Marcellina used black magic to manipulate the Senate. Her home was stormed, her followers scattered. When the soldiers entered her chambers, they found only rose petals and a single golden mask upon her bed. The Domus Veneris vanished, but the rumors never died. Even centuries later, Romans whispered that its mistress still guided men's desires from the shadows. The fall of Rome didn't begin with war, it began with pleasure. By the 3rd century, noble families drowned themselves in luxury. Silk from the East, wine from Greece, and dancers from Egypt filled their halls. The richer they became, the hungrier they grew. Among them was Lord Lucullus, whose villa in Campania was said to rival a god's palace. He imported perfumes by the barrel and built a marble pool filled with rose petals. His parties lasted for days. Men and women bathed together beneath fountains of wine, surrounded by music and laughter. But beneath the laughter lurked despair. The noblemen grew weak, addicted to excess. The women became pawns in political games.
When famine struck, Lucullus's estates burned.
His servants revolted, stealing the treasures he worshipped. In the ruins of his villa, archaeologists later found a mosaic showing a man reaching for grapes that turned to ash. It bore the inscription, "Pleasure is the fire that eats its own." Rome's nobility didn't fall by invasion. They melted under their own indulgence, blinded by lust and luxury until nothing remained but dust and memory. Among the temples and shrines of ancient Rome, not all gods were worshipped in daylight. Beneath the city's catacombs existed the cult of Venus Obscura, the goddess of hidden desire. Its followers were the empire's most influential senators, high priestesses, and even members of the emperor's household. They met by moonlight, their faces masked, their robes crimson. Incense filled the tunnels as they chanted hymns of ecstasy, offering their devotion through acts that blurred the line between prayer and passion. Their leader, a priest named Cassian, claimed that true enlightenment came from surrendering to the body's desires. But his vision turned dark when he began demanding sacrifices, lovers bound in devotion forever. When the emperor learned of these blasphemous rites, his guards raided the tunnels. The cult vanished without resistance, as if it had melted into the shadows. Only the echo of their chants remained. Centuries later, explorers found carvings deep beneath the ruins, masked figures kneeling before a woman with open arms. The inscription read, "We loved without shame, and the gods loved us back." Rome erased them from history, but their passion was immortal. In the final years of the empire, Rome no longer feared the gods. It became its own deity of excess. Each night, the elite hosted banquets that defied reason. Gold dust was sprinkled on food, pearls dissolved in wine, and lovers changed partners like dancers changing steps. At the center of it all was Emperor Lagablasa, a ruler both adored and despised, barely 18. He transformed his palace into a playground of pleasure. He invited the most beautiful courtesans, musicians, and soldiers to nightly feasts, where the rules of gender and class ceased to exist. One night, he ordered rose petals to rain from the ceiling until guests nearly suffocated under their perfume. Another, he offered fortunes to any man who could outlast him in desire. None did, but Rome's patience wore thin. The Senate called him mad. The gods blasphemed. Eventually, his own guards turned against him, ending his reign of indulgence. When his body was thrown into the Tiber, the river ran red with roses. Elagabalus had burned too brightly, proof that even emperors could drown in the pleasure they created. In the golden age of Rome, power and love were twin serpents twisting together until one devoured the other. Senator Marcus Valerius was admired for his wisdom, yet his heart belonged to Claudia, the wife of a rival senator. Their affair was as dangerous as it was intoxicating. They met in moonlit gardens, exchanging secret messages hidden inside flower bouquets. But passion, in Rome, always had a price. Claudia's husband discovered the truth and vowed vengeance. One evening, during a grand feast, he exposed Marcus before the entire Senate, accusing him not only of adultery, but of conspiring with Claudia to overthrow the emperor. Betrayed by the woman he loved, Marcus was dragged to the dungeons. Claudia was spared, but only to serve as a lesson, forced to watch his execution. As Marcus knelt before the blade, he whispered, "Even in death, I am yours." That night, Claudia took her life in the same garden where they once met. The roses bloomed redder the next morning, as if stained by their forbidden devotion. Rome remembered their scandal for generations, a warning that love could be deadlier than treason.